If you're looking for cheap and instant Madden Ultimate Team coins, head on over to MutCoinBank.com and use the discount code RBT for 10% off. And if you're looking for packs actually worth opening, check out MaddenMascot.com and use code RBT for 10% off. Yo, what is going on, everybody? This is Samuel Brown, aka RBT, coming at you with another Madden 17 experiment today. And today we're going to be seeing what would happen if Tony Romo didn't retire. I think every football fan out there wanted to see Tony Romo on another team. We all think he had another year in him, and there's a bunch of teams out there that I really feel like would have benefited from Tony Romo coming over and playing at least one more season with that team. And I think it's very disappointing for all football fans across the world that Tony Romo is now going to be working with CBS and not playing another season. But you never know. Maybe there's a slim chance he could come out of retirement and play for another team. But I think pretty much it's set in stone that he's going to be with CBS. I think it's CBS for the rest of his career probably. So that sucks. But today, like I said, we're going to be seeing what would happen if he would have went to one of those teams. So what we're going to do in today's video is put Tony Romo on 4 different teams. 4 of the teams that were most likely to sign Tony Romo that for some stupid reason ended up not. And we're going to see how Tony Romo would have done on each of those 4 teams, and then see if maybe those 4 teams can have a shot at winning the Super Bowl with him added to the team. And like I said, I think every one of these teams that we're going to be using in today's video would definitely have benefited from Tony Romo being on their team in real life for next season. So I think it's a pretty stupid move that nobody really signed them, especially these 4 teams. But I want you guys to let me know in the comment section below what you think about this. Do you think it's stupid that one of these teams didn't sign Tony Romo? And if one of them were to sign Tony Romo, how do you think he would have done next season? Which team do you think would have benefited the most from Tony Romo coming over and playing it next season? And maybe another season, depending on how he did. So, if you guys do enjoy today's video, let me know by dropping a like. If we get 1,000 likes on today's video, that would be absolutely incredible. And if you have any other ideas like this, let me know in the comment section below. But with that said, let's jump into the video. And the first team, as you see, that we're going to be using in this video is going to be the Houston Texans. I think that made the most sense for him to go to the Houston Texans. I mean, obviously relatively close to Dallas, the closest team to Dallas. And the Texans, although I'm a Titans fan, the Texans have a pretty decent team and are missing a quarterback. And I think Tony Romo would have came in and would have fit perfectly. I think by far would have been the best fit for Romo, and I don't understand why they didn't go after him, because all they have is Tom Savage, who, I mean, played well at points last season when he played instead of Brock Osweiler. But how good of a scenario would it have been for the Texans not only to have Tony Romo? I mean, the ticket sales would have been incredible. It would have been a much better team. But they would have had Tom Savage to be able to sit back and learn behind Tony Romo for a year, maybe 2. And I just think it's stupid that they didn't sign him, or at least match the offer. I'm pretty sure the Houston Texans could match an offer of CBS. But I don't know, maybe I'm stupid. But every roster that we are going to be using in today's video is going to be the most up-to-date roster, so all the free agency signings and etc. are going to be implemented into today's video. So it's basically like doing next season simulation. So as you see, I don't think the Texans made too many changes on offense. I mean, they have a decent wide receiver core, but didn't make too many changes. And defensively, I'm not sure either, like, if there's any of these players are new onto the Texans squad. But I mean, it's a pretty decent team. And I think with Tony Romo added to the team, having a very good quarterback, I think they have a shot to, you know, make it or win the AFC South at least, and maybe make a push for the Super Bowl. So with that said, guys, let's jump into simulation number 1 and see if Tony Romo is enough for the Texans to make it to the playoffs. So, as you see, it looks like the Texans didn't make the playoffs with Tony Romo at quarterback. The Texans are a weird team in simulations. Like, in some simulations, they do very good, and in some simulations they are awful. So it's like either one or the other. They're never like an average team. But let's see how they did with Tony Romo. Looks like an average season, because if it's a bad season, normally the players like go down in overall. If it's a very good season, they go up in overall. So I think that they probably won like 8-8 looking at that, and they went 8-7-1. And my Titans did awful at 5-11, but 8-7-1 was just below the Jaguars in the divisional standings. That one tie completely screwed up the Texans. Who was that against? We actually tied against the Denver Broncos of all teams, who you might actually be seeing later in the video. We lost to the Jaguars 7-42. My God! No wonder, like, this stretch was awful. We're gonna see if it was Tony Romo's fault, like if we didn't make the playoffs or not. Maybe he had a bad season. Who knows? Injuries are gonna be off for all these simulations, just throwing that out there. We were 24th in the NFL, but Tony Romo had a pretty good season. Almost 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, 16 picks, so maybe we didn't do good in the running game. Yeah, not too good. Lamar Miller, just over 1,000 yards, 7 TDs, and Alfred Blue with 8 TDs. Now, receiving yards, we had DeAndre Hopkins eclipse 1,000 yards at 1,200. Now I want to go ahead and see if like Tony Romo somehow came in the top 10 of the MVP. I have to see. Tom Brady, of course, won it. Dak Prescott came in 6th, who pretty much booted Tony Romo out the door in Dallas. And yeah, Tony Romo did not come in the top 10. It seems like pretty much the MVP in every simulation you do is basically based around what teams make the playoffs. Like if your team didn't make the playoffs, even though if you had a great year statistically, you're more than likely in Madden not going to come in the top 10 for the MVP race. So in simulation number 1, the winner of the Super Bowl is going to be the San Diego Chargers over the Atlanta Falcons. So looks like 2 years in a row the Falcons can't catch a break. Now simulation number 2, and like I just referred to, we're going to be doing this with the Denver Broncos, another team that Tony Romo was heavily rumored with to sign with, because I mean obviously John Elway's not afraid to bring in older quarterbacks. Well, Peyton Manning ended up doing pretty well, winning the Super Bowl there in Denver. But with that said, we're going to see if Tony Romo can have the same success that Peyton Manning had. And I think out of all these teams, the Broncos have the best shot to actually go far in the playoffs with Tony Romo as the starting quarterback. That's a pretty big upgrade from Trevor Siemian. I mean, a pretty good team. So it looks like another fail, as the Broncos didn't make their playoffs either. See how bad they did. They actually have 2 players regressing, which means they probably went under 500. And that was correct, as they actually come in dead last in the AFC West, coming in at 6-10. So looks like Tony Romo maybe made a good decision not coming back, because his teams aren't doing too freaking good. So let's check out the stats so and see if it was his fault. Now offensively, they did pretty bad. 26th in the NFL in terms of offense, actually worse than they did with the Texans. And let's see how Tony Romo did though. Just over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Surprised he didn't die, being sacked 71 times. And thank God injuries are off, because if they weren't off, Tony Romo probably would have got hurt during one of those 71 sacks. So was it CJ Anderson's fault? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it seems like the teams are doing pretty well. I just don't know why the offense as a whole isn't really doing too well, which means they're not ever making the playoffs. Now, CJ Anderson, decent season, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, and Justin Forsett with 341 and 10 TDs. How did the receivers do? Demaryius Thomas barely eclipsed 1,000 yards, had 10 touchdowns. Marlon Brown, decent season. Emmanuel Sanders only had 1 touchdown, which is very surprising for him. And Virgil Green had 6 touchdowns. I don't know if Tony Romo had a good enough season to come in the top 10 of the MVP, but we'll check anyway. Alex Smith, of all quarterbacks, won the MVP, and nowhere to be found is Tony Romo. Now it's time in the second simulation to see who won the Super Bowl. It's going to be the Dallas Cowboys, without Tony Romo, beat the New England Patriots 20-17. So that's kind of like a punch in the gut for Tony Romo, going over the Broncos, not doing too well, and the Cowboys without him doing well. Third team that we're going to be using in this simulation is going to be the New York Jets. Weren't one of the favorites to sign Tony Romo, but they were up there in terms of being interested in Tony Romo, and I think he'd be a good fit. I mean, New York, he's obviously used to being in the limelight, so being in New York shouldn't be a problem for Tony Romo. And he'd have some decent weapons. I mean, he'll have Eric Decker, he'll have Quincy Enunwa, and a good veteran running back behind him in Matt Forte and Bilal Powell. What a shocker. Once again, Tony Romo and the Jets don't make the playoffs. How bad did they do this time? Looks like they had an average season. Nobody looks like, well, the whole entire offensive line regressed. So that's probably bad for Tony Romo, because he probably got sacked 100 times and now has spinal damage. Now, anyways, I'm going to predict like 6-10 probably once again. And hey, I was pretty freaking close. Dead last in the division. Once again, at 6-9-1. At least they did like half a game better than the Broncos did. Now, anyways, got to see if Tony Romo played any better. Probably not with that offensive line. Now, the offense was a little bit better. 11th in the NFL. A lot better than the last 2 simulations. But the defense, who I thought was actually pretty good, let us down. So, Tony Romo can't control the defense. Now, I'm going to check out how he did. He looks like he had his best season so far with the Jets. 4,400 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Was sacked 60 times, so not too good, but that's better than 70. Robbie Anderson had the best season. Wow. That's a pretty good season for Tony Romo, but is that good enough to make it in the top 10 of the MVP? Probably not, knowing Madden. And yep, nowhere to be found. The Atlanta Falcons finally getting a Super Bowl victory, this time over the Patriots. So some revenge right here, 35-21. So in simulation number 4, we're bringing Tony Romo to San Francisco to see if he can turn around the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I think this is Tony Romo's worst shot at having a good season, because the 49ers in Madden, repeat, in Madden, are pathetic. Like, every time you do a simulation, they're pretty awful. So, we're going to see if Tony Romo can make a huge improvement. What do you know? Once again, didn't make the playoffs. So this video isn't necessarily going as planned. I'm going to say 3-13. That's what I'm going to go with. 5-11. Hey, they did better than what I expected. The Seahawks had a cakewalk because the rest of the division sucked in this video. But hey, 5-11 is not 3 wins. So they did better than what I thought. So how bad was the offense in the simulation? Oh, well, about dead last. 16 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but he was only sacked 38 times, which is weird because the offensive line isn't that great. So what actually happened? That's a pretty bad season. He had the same exact average yard per carry as Tim Hightower. That's not necessarily a good thing. Now, our receivers, I think the receivers are just not too good. No wonder they had a bad season. Our leading receiver had 5 touchdowns. That is pretty bad. Pierre Garçon, disappointing. I mean, I might as well check to see who won the MVP, but I know for sure it's not going to be Tony Romo. Just got to see if it's anybody surprising. And, no, it's Tom Brady, as always. I know I said we were only going to do 4 teams, but I'm going to go ahead and add in a 5th team that was interested in Tony Romo that a lot of articles were saying. But before we get into that simulation, we have to see who won the Super Bowl in this one, and it's going to be once again. So in this 5th and final simulation with a different team, we're going to be using the Kansas City Chiefs. I wasn't going to use the Chiefs, but I feel like this is the only chance Tony Romo is going to have to win a Super Bowl. So we're going to use the Chiefs, but he was actually linked with the Chiefs in real life. For some reason, the Chiefs wanted him over Alex Smith. That's up to you guys if you think that would be a good move, but we're going to try in today's simulation. Now, I want to see. We simmed the regular season. At the start of these, Tony Romo has been a free agent, and every single one of these, he was signed by the Lions. I'm not sure if that's Madden trying to tell us something, but in every single one of these, just completely random, the Lions signed him out of free agency. So I want to see if it happened once again. I haven't checked in this 5th one yet, but I'd be willing to bet once again if it's happened in the rest of the 4 that he's been signed in this one. And there you go, Tony Romo with the Lions. So maybe that's what I should have done with the freaking Lions. So Tony Romo to the Lions. If that happens in real life, Madden, EA Sports is a part of the Illuminati. Well, this has completely gone to crap. The Chiefs, who pretty much make the playoffs in every single simulation, didn't make it with the addition of Tony Romo. So this experiment has been a fail. And let's see how they actually did. Probably an average season, 8-8. So looks like Tony Romo might have made a good choice. A good season, 28 touchdowns, 15 picks, 4,000 yards passing, rushing yards, Spencer Ware. Well, we didn't do too well running the football. That's probably why. Looks like Jeremy Maclin was our leading receiver with 1,000 yards, and Travis Kelce had 10 touchdowns. I guess the loss of Jamal Charles ended up being pretty huge because I think our running game is the reason why we didn't make the playoffs. So last thing to do before we end the video is check to see who won the Super Bowl in this final simulation. And if it's the Falcons for the 3rd straight simulation, that's Madden telling you that the Falcons are going to win it next year. 100% confirmed. And it's the Steelers over the Falcons. So the Falcons, I think, made it to the Super Bowl 4 times out of 5. With that said, guys, that is going to do it for the video. Hopefully you did enjoy it. It ended up being kind of a fail because Tony Romo didn't have, like, a big season where they made a playoff run, made it to the Super Bowl, didn't win the MVP or anything, but I tried. So we gave him 5 chances on 5 different teams of 5 teams that were most interested in signing him, and it looks like maybe he made a good choice signing with CBS just to be able to relax and not have to worry about being on a bad team. But hopefully you guys did enjoy, like I said, and if you did, make sure to drop a like. Let me know in the comment section below, do you think there's still a chance Tony Romo comes out of retirement and plays for another team? And if he does, let me know how you think he's going to do, and let me know what team you think that's going to end up being. But with that said, guys, that's going to do it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will catch you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.